Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is the end of 2019. As always, I do the annual, the traditional. I throw in the sport coat that doesn't fit so much anymore and gets smaller every year. And I cover the best and worst, more letdowns, cameras of the year, which is the best and worst cameras of 2019. Now, these are just my opinion. Obviously, you have your own. And throughout this video, I want you to kind of leave a comment and think about what was the best and worst, what let you down. What are you excited about? And I want to hear your thoughts on what you want from 2020 from your camera brand or something you want to switch to. Now, this was a big year for a lot of cameras. There were a lot of camera companies. There was a lot of anticipation for some. I'll cover the 3 or 4 that I anticipated, and I'll break it down once we get into the more listy stuff. But I must say, Sony had the biggest year, in my opinion. They came out with the most cameras, but pretty much the most impactful ones as well. But I had basically 4 highly anticipated cameras that I really wanted to learn more and see if they would come out in 2019. Those being the Fuji X Pro 3, the Ricoh GR3, the Sony A7S III, and the Zeiss ZX1. Like I said, it was a year of a lot of cameras, and these are a bunch of just honorable mentions I want to run through. Just to show you what was out there. I'm not covering every little camera that came out there. Like, I'm leaving some of the point and shoots off because they're just not 100% exciting to me. But there were some good ones that came out from Sony, Canon, etc. But I wanted to start off with some honorable mentions, not breaking it down a huge ton. But the Sony a6100 and 6600, replacing the a6000, which is still a great legendary camera for Sony, and pretty much what put them on the map. But I also do want to say, and it's because it's not really my forte, the Sony A9 Mark II. The Sony A9 was legendary for Sony in itself, flagship, sports camera, etc. But incremental upgrades, a little bit of improved grip, but too small of an improvement for me to put it at the top. But I'm also not a high-speed needed shooter, so it doesn't stick out to me a ton, but I do acknowledge that it's great. The Canon EOS RP and the 90D, once again, nothing fully impressive for me there, but we'll keep that going. The Leica SL2, that will be, as it is. The Nikon Z50, okay, cool, I guess. The Panasonic S1, S1R, and S1H, and it was Panasonic trying something different, and I feel like they hit a mark, but it didn't sell extremely well like they expected. But Panasonic did a lot with those cameras right there, tried something new, and I felt like they kind of hit a little bit, but just not huge, and that's why it's more of an honorable mention than kind of camera of the year. The other one I want to say is Fuji X-T30. Great camera, once again, not really my forte, but sold very well. The GFX 100, and lastly but not leastly, the Sigma FP. Now, Sigma's made cameras before. They did okay, but they were very bad at autofocusing. There was a lot of issues with them. But with this one, it's just the small square camera that a lot of people were like, man, this just looks weird. But in testing, a lot of people liked it, especially for cinematography. So if you're getting to video, and the huge perk was that it is part of the L-mount alliance. So as part of the L-mount, you can use your Panasonic lenses, you can use your Leica lenses, and you can use the Sigma adapter to put Sigma branded lenses on them as well. This really isn't a long list for the worst or basically letdowns of 2019. One camera was on the brink of making it, but I put it more towards the best, just because I felt like it needed to be. But one of the ones I'll start with is the Olympus EM1X. This big beast that Olympus came out with, they felt like they were going to hit market with it, and they just didn't. It did not sell. It was not popular. It was too expensive for what it is, and it just didn't do well whatsoever. And the other one is one of the ones I anticipated that I wanted to learn a lot about this year is the Zeiss ZX1. We still don't know anything about it, really. We don't know anything. So, well, lastly but not least, we have the tops of 2019. And in kind of a particular order, and I always have to throw these on there. And last year, they were a little bit higher on the list compared to this year, but it's still worth a mention. Smartphone photography is a thing. Get over it. You have it in your palm of your hand or your pocket or sitting on your desk, wherever you're watching this right now. But the iPhone 11 Pro Max and the Google Pixel 4 and 4 XL cameras are great. The iPhone added that wide-angle lens, which is a little overrated, but it is actually really cool to have. I've used it a lot. It's just fun. It's something different, and you don't need to throw a lens over that. But if you're having the Pixel, you were kind of let down just an extent because you didn't get that third wide angle. But the software that goes into it, These phones nowadays take phenomenal images, whatever you're doing out there, and the whole nighttime modes between both of them. Whew. So, highly, highly worth a mention. And I'm disappointed to put this lower on the list, but I have to because I was more let down than happy, but it is still a great camera image quality. And by the time I made this video, I've already had this for probably a little over a week now, etc. And it is the Fuji X Pro 3. I was a Fuji X Pro 2 fan. I actually got rid of it to upgrade to the X Pro 3. I'm mainly just bored. I wanted to upgrade, but it missed the mark for me. The whole body design, I don't like the flip down screen. It's just not for me. The back screen is just chintzy. If they wanted to make the camera as it is, they just probably shouldn't have put a screen on it at all. And I probably wouldn't have bought it. And I missed that they took out the dials in the back. You just have the thumbstick, which is fine. But overall, it just missed the mark. It does focus a lot better. The AF and low light, really, really good. But just the body alone, I'm not feeling it. I actually really preferred if it more looked like the Fuji GFX 50R. Basically, the design of the X Pro 2, and just had a tilt screen. That's all I wanted. I didn't need anything else. But then it says, hey, just keep the X Pro 2. Well, yeah, but I wanted a tilt screen. So the X Pro 3 did let me down for the most part, but I'm still excited to have it. Fuji produces great images. I love what's behind it, but they let me down out there. Next up is the Ricoh GR3, which I was very excited about coming from the GR2, which I owned for a while. The GR line is what I'm very excited about, and then it came out this year, and it did not disappoint. That, with the wide-angle adapter lens, woo, it is great. Nothing huge for the most part, but just something that I felt was great. It did autofocus a little bit better as well. Very excited for that. And I did kind of slash it in there with the Sony a6400. It was Sony's first attempt at the flip screen. It's a very weird mechanism. You pull it out, you throw it back, and you put it up. But I appreciate Sony trying, for that matter, so I do respect that. It sold very well for them this year. The Sony a6400 is a very good camera. The autofocusing is spectacular. It started off with all like the IAF and the animal stuff and all that kind of stuff, and it just works out for them. So the a6400 100% has to get the nod as being one of the top cameras of the year. Once again, for me, not the top, but it's really high up there. And it's one that I pretty much highly recommend. Once again, this list is for myself, but the next up is the Leica Q2. I almost debated getting this one over the X Pro 3 and trying to figure out a way to save some money, do everything for it, but I couldn't afford it. But there were some couple things restricting me. I really wanted to have telephoto. I wanted to have more capability. I know it's more of an overall travel lens, the 28mm on it, but I didn't necessarily like the cropping in. And the problem with getting whatever bokeh and whatever you want is you are cropping into it. So you're not getting, if you're cropping into like 35, 50, 75, not only are you losing the megapixels behind it, but you're not getting that same bokeh as if you were using, and the compression, an actual lens as well. So for the price point, it's honestly not horrible. People overrate that a lot, but it was something that very, very excited me very much. So in 2019, the camera that stuck out the most, that I felt did very well, was more universally accepted, was the Sony a7R Mark IV. Once again, this was a year of not a lot impressive or happening for the most part, but they came out with a camera that was accepted, especially a lot about Sony shooters. It improved the grip, it improved some features, it improved the IAF, the autofocus, higher resolution and everything. Was it 61 megapixels or whatever? And it just, there wasn't a lot of negatives to it. So I think the Sony a7R Mark IV definitely kind of grabbed the notch. If the X Pro 3 was better, I probably would have picked that as well. But it seems like Sony kind of took the year and took #1 on the list for me. So I did a poll under my community tab, and there's about roughly 600 and some views, almost 700. And this is kind of how it laid out. I listed a couple different cameras, and this is what you guys, people who watch me, feel is more or less the camera of the year from the list. I gave the Fuji X Pro 3, Ricoh GR3, Sony a6400, a7R4, and the Panasonic S1 and S1R. I left off the Leica because not a lot of people will like it for the price and everything without really looking into it, but I understand that. So coming in a third for you guys and girls at 18% is the Ricoh GR3. I've talked about the Ricoh on this channel. A lot of people like it in street photography, so I see why that there's general interest. The one that surprised me came in last place, actually, with 5% of the vote, and it's this Sony a6400. I feel like that was more accessible, you know, easier to understand and grab and everything, but you guys and girls didn't pick it. Number 2 came in at the Sony a7R Mark IV, so there you go at 29%. And then number 1, 34%, the Fuji X Pro 3. So very interesting to see how that came out compared to how I ranked my own list. So that's it, what we have right there. Thank you so much, guys and girls, for a great 2019. As you've seen, I'm pretty much committed to making maybe 1 video a week or 2 videos a month or etc. every other week or whatever happens. That's because I feel like I like the rhythm, I like the pace, I like the engagement that comes out with it, and I don't need to go too insane, and I'm not covering a lot of the stuff that comes out because a lot of it is super boring to me, and I know it's boring to some of you guys and girls as well because talk about it on Instagram, talk about it on Twitter, and it's just kind of like meh. But happy with the way things are going. Thank you so much again for the support in 2019. Let's see what 2020 brings us. Sony A7S line. What are you doing? It's like 4 years now. Come on.